Okay, welcome back. So in this video we're going to actually draw a shape, use a couple of the commands that we've learned about, and we're going to look at levels. This file I'm going to ask you to actually create, save, and submit for grading. This will be your first grade. So my recommendation would be to have you watch this video first, get an idea of what we're looking at, and then I'm going to have you go ahead and go into your own Mastercam, follow the steps, create the geometry, and then save and submit the file in Blackboard. And I apologize for the amount of videos this week. The first couple of weeks are usually pretty heavy, tutorial-wise, lecture-wise, and then as we start to develop the baseline skills, you won't have to watch as many videos to perform the work. So let's start. Again, we're just going to create a basic part in Mastercam, and again, with the knowledge that normally you would not be doing this much drawing in the system, you would be importing something. So this is a brand new file. I have my F9 points selected, okay, so I have my 0, 0 points going. And then let's start by creating our outline. We're going to do a rectangle to start, and then we're going to add some more details to it, okay? Now, levels, again, are going to be important going forward. So we're going to establish a level structure and talk about it, and then I'm going to expect you to follow this structure going forward in all your files. So you see we start off with one basic level. I would like to rename this, and we're going to go ahead and call this Op10 Outside Geometry. Okay. Now the Op10 is there because eventually we're going to have more than one operation, and what I want you to do is associate your levels with the operation that it's used on. So in this case we're only going to have one operation, so everything is going to have a prefix of Op10 and then a descriptor towards the back end. Okay. So we are going to create our rectangle on Op10 Outside Geometry. I'm going to go up to Wireframe. I'm going to select rectangle, and this particular piece, the bottom left hand corner is going to be at 0, 0. Okay, so that's our first selection point with a left click. And then I want to make a 12 by 12 square. So in the width I'm going to type 12, and in the height I'm going to type 12. Okay, and again, this is all in the upper right hand corner of the Cartesian coordinate system. So that means all of our inputs are positive. Okay. So I hit the tab key and I scrolled out so I could see the items that I'm drawing. I'm happy with this, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK, which is the green checkbox, and we're going to drop that down. So we have a rectangle placed. That's 12 by 12. Now you'll see we have 4 entities. And that's because the rectangle separates itself or explodes into 4 separate lines. It does not, one rectangle does not stay one entity. It basically explodes into 4 separate lines. All right. Now, one thing we have not covered yet is how to change colors. I want to look at that now because it's easier to see if we change it to a brighter color. I'm going to use my pick box method. So I'm going to left click in the upper left hand corner. I'm going to hold it and I'm going to drag, and I'm going to highlight all four lines. Now when I right click, you're going to see that above the text options there's also a toolbar menu here, and this is where our levels can be manipulated. We are right now drawing in wireframe, and you'll notice that if you come up here there's a toolbar or an icon with 2 overlapping rectangles. And you may recognize that color, the dark blue there. That's where we can change the color of the levels that we have highlighted. So I'm going to click on the caret to open my options, and I'm going to pick something a little bit brighter. Let's do a green. One thing I always tell my students right away: never use red for anything, because red is a crash color. So when you go to start running simulations, red becomes a pretty important color for you. It shows interferences, so you don't want to have red on the screen anywhere except for when you're doing that kind of testing. So again, I'm going to pick green. You can pick any color you'd like to in your file. That's not going to be an issue for grading one way or the other. Okay, so let's save this file. before we go any farther. I'm going to go up to File. I'm going to do a Save As. And then I have a file structure already built out on my flash drive so that I know where to put all my stuff. So I'm going to go into my week 1 folder, and I'm going to call this my last name, Parnell, and then student, I don't know, Parnell tutorial week 1 tutorial complete. You'll want to keep track of how, I don't care how you do this, but this will be the file that you submit to me in Blackboard, so you want to keep track of it and know where it's going to be for later. So we'll save that. So now we have a green rectangle, okay? I'm going to stay on this existing level, and let's go ahead and use our chamfer and fillet commands to practice that. So I'm going to select fillet, and let's say I want 2 half-inch rounds on the top of my rectangle, so, or for radiuses. So I'm going to put 0.50 in the radius. It's going to be a normal fillet. I do want to trim, so I'm going to turn that back on. If it's not on for you, make sure you turn it back on. And then I'm going to select the 2 items I want to fillet in between. So I'm going to select the left line and the top line, and then the top line and the right line. Okay. I'm going to click OK. And you'll notice that we're back to blue, which is good because I want to keep letting you guys practice how to change things. So I'm going to left click, which selects my radiuses. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go ahead and change the color on those. Okay. And again, you can pause the video and rewatch it if I'm going a little bit too fast for you. So there are the radiuses. Now let's chamfer the bottom edges of the rectangle. So I'm going to go up to Modify. Next to Fillet, there's Chamfer Entities. And let's make these a little bit bigger so we can see them. So let's say I want a 1 inch by 45 chamfer on the bottom of each of those. I'm going to change distance 1 to 1 inch. The angle is already 45 degrees, and Trim Entities is already turned on, so we're in good shape. So again, I'm going to select the 2 features where I want that chamfer to generate, and then you'll see that it trims. Same thing, trims again. I'm going to click OK. And now let's go back and change the color on both of these. Again, I single clicked before. You can also do a pick box. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to change the color to green again. Okay, so now you see we have 8 entities on number 1, level number 1. Those are the 4 lines and then the chamfers. Went very well. I'm going to save this again. And now we're going to create a second level and draw some circles and some different geometry. So, in order to create a new level, in the Levels tab, I think I mentioned that in the bottom left-hand corner in the Operations menu here, I'm in the Levels area in the bottom left-hand corner. So the plus button, the green plus button in the upper left-hand corner, is where we can create a new level. By clicking on that, you see number 2 populates, and the blue check mark moves from number 1 to number 2. That means number 2 is active. So anything that we draw right now with that blue checkbox on 2 is going to go on to this level. You want to keep that in mind. That's very important going forward as we're drawing. On this second level, we're going to draw some circles, and we're going to rename this level 2 so that we know exactly what we're doing with this geometry. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. I'm going to name it Op10 again, and then this time we'll call it Circle. I'll hit Tab or Enter to get out of that area. Make sure it's highlighted, and now we're going to draw a circle. So in the upper left-hand corner under Arcs, Circle Center Point. I'm going to use my position in space here to actually draw in the middle of my rectangle. So I know this is 12 by 12, so my coordinates are going to be 6 by 6. I'm in circle center point. I'm going to go up to the auto cursor, fast point, and I'm going to specify 6, 6. Now that should place us in the center of that rectangle. Okay. I'm going to change its radius to 3, which means the diameter will be 6, and then I'm going to click OK. Now again, you'll notice that we still have a default color there of dark blue, again, which is fine because I want you to practice going into this menu. So I'm going to left click on it. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to wireframe, and I'm going to select a different color. So in this one, I will use black. Now there was a different way of doing this. So let's say you didn't really know what these dimensions were off the top of your head, and you want to just do some reference geometry to get that center point rather than specifying 6 by 6. Okay. One thing you could have done, just to keep in the back of your head, I could have used line endpoints, and these snap areas again are powerful, so you know these are equal. I could have actually created a couple of reference geometry lines like that based off the midpoints, and then I actually could have used that as my center point for the circle. Okay, let's say I want to call this one, I don't know, a diameter 8. Actually, it looks like it's off by a little bit, huh? I think I must have had a wrong snap point. Hang on one second. Oh, it's because the chamfers created the endpoint, the line. Yeah, these aren't equal. So that actually was probably the best way we did it before. So I'm glad we didn't do it this way. But it's something that, remember, if you want to use reference geometry and use snap points, you can create reference geometry in order to get you where you need it to go. So that was a bad example on my part. So now we have a circle. We have not used bolt circle yet, so let's go ahead and practice that one. So we have a center point here. Let's say there's going to be a set of circles around this area. So we click on bolt circle. We get a little bit more complicated dialog box over here, but remember to continue looking at what Mastercam is asking you for in this tooltip box. So right now it is asking for a base point. So let's say my base point is going to be in the center of this circle. If I get into the center of it, it's going to automatically snap to it. I'm going to left click. And now here's where it starts getting a little interesting. So you'll see this in some commands where you can actually click and drag an arrow or move it around with a little bit of ruler. Or, you know, this isn't very easy. It's kind of clunky. Really what we want to do is type in and specify some things. So let's say that we'll start from the top. There's going to be 6. Oof, my computer is really bogging down here. Let me get out of this for a second. Let's try it again. Bolt circle, center. So now the number of circles, let's say we're going to have 4 holes. The angle automatically updates to 90 degrees because that's the distance in between 4. Okay. Base point we already selected. The diameter is going to be the bolt hole circle, the bolt pattern. So let's say we want this to be on an 8-inch bolt hole circle. That looks to be about good. Now the only thing I'm looking for right now here is the diameter. Next one down, create entities. So right now they're 1/2 inch diameter, which is fine. Let's leave it at that. I don't think we need to do anything else. So we click OK, and now we have 4 circles placed along around the center point of the original circle that we drew. Much easier than drawing 4 separate circles. So when you have bolt hole patterns like this, you would definitely want to use bolt circle. It's a faster way of doing that. I know it doesn't look like much, but I know these are the wrong color, so I'm going to go ahead and select these again. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go and use black to change that color. Okay, Great. So now I am going to save this. And let's just see what else we have up here that we can practice with. Like I said, there's really not a whole lot of stuff I want you to know in here. There are a few commands like offset and mirror and things like that that we would look at. In fact, we might as well practice some of those now. Why not? So mirror and offset are not like a drawing wireframe command. You've actually got to go to transform. The transform tab has commands where you move, shift, and change existing geometry. So you'll see we have dynamic, translate, rotate, move, mirror. Mirror is one that you may want to know, just for if you have duplicate geometries. You don't have to draw it twice. You can duplicate it this way. Mirror is exactly that. It's going to take it and it's going to flip it. So in this case, let's do a full mirror. So we'll select everything that we've drawn so far. I left clicked up top, encompass the whole thing in the pick box, right click it so we get the yellow and black dashed lines for highlighting. I'm going to hit end selection to let it know that we're done selecting, and it's going to bring us into the dialog box for mirror. And you'll see right now by default it's already kind of guessing what we want. So from top to bottom, entity method is copy. We could also move or join. Copy and move are the most ones. So if you want two pieces of the same thing, you can leave copy. If you just want to shift it on the other side of the axis like that, you would just do move. In my case, let's say I want to copy. And then there's an offset distance. So if this is 0, let's say I wanted to offset in the y-axis, the x-axis, an inch. It's going to split the parts. It's going to actually going to go negative on that. Negative. There we go. So we basically changed the axis, the mirror axis, down to -1 inch, which means the distance from here to the bottom of your part is 1, and the distance from here to the copied part is also 1. So that's how you kind of split the gap up. Again, I'm not too concerned with this command. I just want you to know it's here so you can kind of look at it and play around with it. I'm not actually even going to have you create a mirrored command. I just want you to kind of see this. So let's go back to cancel that. And let's continue. Well, one thing, we'll talk about translate later on too, so that's not a big deal. So we'll stick with this for now. Let's just see if I want to do one more thing. Okay, I changed my mind, so I actually think this is good enough for now. So what I'd actually like to do is go ahead, I'm going to save this, and I want to show you how to submit this file. So I have saved it, and I have Blackboard open, so I'm going to minimize this Mastercam window. I'm going to open up my Blackboard, and I want to show you how to upload this assignment into the week 1 folder. So if I go into week 1, Introduction to Mastercam, I'm going to scroll down and you're going to see an area called week 1 tutorial submission. I'm going to click in there. You'll see the available points to you, which is 10. You don't need to write any comments in the system. All I need you to do is go to Attach Files, going to Browse My Computer. I'm going to go and find my file, which is this one right here. I'm going to click Open, and then you would click on Submit. Okay, I'm not going to do it for mine because I don't need to submit a file to myself. But once you hit Submit, I will get a cue that you've finished your homework, and I will be able to come in here and grade it. So that's the end of that tutorial. Again, pause the video, go back and walk through these steps. Now, this isn't the end of the week's material, so that's just the assignment, okay? Now, what you would do after you complete the tutorial is you're going to want to navigate to the Blackboard Lab component. So again, that is the one that has the L in it after 132. When you go into course content in the lab, you're going to see that there's also a week 1 introduction to Mastercam, but it has the lab moniker at the end of it. And inside of this, you have another exercise to complete. So this is this week 1 lab instructions is a Word document that you would download and open up. So for example, I'm going to do that so you guys can see it. This is going to be the lab component of your week's work, and this is another drawing tutorial that I wrote up that has written instructions. And again, it's very similar to what we just did in the lab, okay, but it's not exactly the same. So it's kind of reinforcing what we just did, and you're going to do the same thing. So you're going to follow through the steps, you're going to save it, and then you are going to go ahead and submit it in this lab submission area, the same way you did with the tutorial. Okay, so every week you're going to have tutorials to complete and labs to complete. You're going to have to try and keep track, so I would recommend you build a good file structure and make sure you keep everything separate. Exercises are in the lab, so when you see a file called an exercise, that's how you know that these are all in the lab component. And then when you're in the lecture component, everything inside of here is called a tutorial. And again, you'll also have reference videos to look at while you're doing this. So this concludes the week 1 tutorial portion. Again, go ahead and go back in this video and draw the geometry that we were looking at for this, and then make your way to the lab component and complete that. Once you've done that, you are done with Mastercam submissions for the week. And then the only thing you have to worry about is just watching the reference videos, which are kind of fun. They're kind of fun CNC related videos that highlight different areas. Some of them, or most of them, relate to the work we're doing that week, but some of them are just good informational things that you should know about CNCs in general. So thank you very much, and I will see you in week 2.